Okay, good evening, everybody, whoever may decide to show up. Um, I gotta make sure that this thing is even working. It's been kind of an interesting day. I'm gonna give it a minute or two to get things, or a second or two here to build things up a bit. Ooh, I got quite a few people in here. Well, that's good. That's good. I'll be with you in just a second. I just want to make sure of something. In just a second. I just want to make sure of something. In just a second. I just want to make sure of something. And almost directly. Yep. Okay. Okay, Glow. Good evening, everybody. And today was the opening of what is supposed to be a week of uh, a hearing. There was, we had, opening arguments, all that sort of stuff. Sort of. Like I said this morning when I talked, this hearing went completely off the rails. And I guess I'll start from the beginning. After I had my little meal that we talked about, that I talked to you, I went upstairs and I sat in the courtroom. And right off the bat, there's this guy walking around in the courtroom, pacing. And he was like an expected father waiting for the delivery or whatever because he's just walking and walking around. But even before that guy, something interesting happened. I was walking down the hall, and there are these three women sitting on a bench outside the courtroom. Um, the courtroom has a long corridor, and it had a bench for people to sit on outside each of the courtroom. And so they were sitting there, and I had my little notebook. I have this little notebook that I was used to take notes inside the court. And I thought, no, Kathy, you're coming through. A little surprised to see you in here, but no, you're not blocked. Uh, now, excuse me, I'm just finishing something up here. I walked up to the three women because I noticed that I thought I had forgotten the pen that I had taken from Days In so that I could take notes. Well, I turned to the ladies and I said, "This is kind of a dumb question, but does any of you people have a pen?" And the lady in the middle, she spent. They're all saying, "Sure, we got an extra pen," and they're all hunting for a pen. And the one in the middle finds this little pen and says, here's a pen." And I said, "Well, thank you very much, ladies." And I strode off and went into the courtroom. And I sat down, and of course, this is getting back to where this guy is walking around on the courtroom floor. You're welcome, Shane. And, he's walking like he's nervous about something. And, I asked him, I said, okay, because when I first sat down, I sat to the right. This is a very small courtroom. Had 3 aisles running the length of the back of the courtroom, with a split in the center for people to walk in. And these were these really long church view like benches on one piece, no arms rest between people. It's just one big, long, very uncomfortable oak pew. And so I sat in the very front pew in the beginning, so that I could be as close to Cynthia as I could if she ever showed up. And so I sat down and I was talking to this guy. And I even talked to the stenographer because I wanted to find out when a transcript would be available. So we had a bit of a discussion there. And she said the transcripts would become available after the verdict. And so I said, oh, okay. And she told me that this is the way it was going to work. She said, if there is a verdict of guilty, sentencing happens within 35 days. And after the 35 days are up and the sentencing is complete, then she has an additional 90 days to appeal. So that would mean any transcripts coming out of the court was going to be something of a weight. And so I said, okay. And so I went back and I sat down, waiting for the jury selection to begin. Kathy, what I was saying, that if Cynthia Abcug had been found guilty by the jury, there would be a process. She would not be sentenced that day. The judge would set a sentencing date where she would be sentenced, and then after the sentencing, it would be up to her if she wanted to appeal or not. Martha, I'm not sure. That's the way this particular court seems to work. Be polite, Alex. It's just the way their court's set up. I didn't ask, I didn't get into 1,000 questions with her asking what, why the process takes so long. It is what it is. The process is similar to any other court that I've been to. You have a trial. If the defendant is adjudicated guilty, then the sentencing comes at a later date. And after the sentencing, there's a time set up for the appeal. The thing that got me was how to get the transcripts. Now, this is one of the reasons they came up to cover this thing, is because if there had been a trial and so forth, it'd be that much longer before we find anything out. So by being here, I can report things as they happen. Now, so I sat there for a minute, and the guy pacing with the green suit on says that when the questioning of the jury starts, they're probably going to ask you to sit in the back a little bit farther. So I got up and I went over and I sat in the third row in the corner. And it turned out to be a good place to sit because I was roughly 10 feet from the defendant's table. You had the defendant with their lawyer on the left, you had the prosecution on the right. And the prosecution was this one guy from the DA's office. And on the defendant's side, you had this lawyer. I don't know if he was Indian, Pakistani. He's kind of a charges. Be patient with me, Kathy. I am getting up to what happened with the charges and everything because this, like I said this morning, this trial went completely off the rails, and you're going to find out why. So just kind of be patient with me because this whole thing is one of the weirdest trials I've ever covered. So anyway, so I changed, and these three women came in, and one of, including the woman that gave me the pen, and along with a fourth woman. And the fourth woman is an attorney from the public defender's office. And so you've got the public defender's office and these other two women and this guy. So she had what I thought was 4 or 5 people that were her lawyer. I said, this is kind of like the OJ trial. All these lawyers, and it's also like Casey Anthony, where Casey Anthony had all these lawyers. And so there's all these women coming over, and the 3 women sat directly in front of me in the first row, which is the farthest you can go for without the bar that goes down the length of the court. It's just this big wall that goes down the court that the audience is on one side and everybody else, the officers of the court are on the other side of this bar. That's where they come up with the bar association. It has to do with this little bar. Anyway, so all these women are sitting there hugging each other. They go into a huddle, and so there's this big meeting. And this is where it gets a little weird. This guy comes in. He's either my age or older, but he looks old. I mean, this guy, he was sort of bent over, walking, like old guys walk. He was dressed Western-ish. He had a black vest on over his shirt. He had the rhinestone or whatever it is that people wear out in this part of the country, where they have the little blue stones and everything. And so, and all of a sudden, all these women, all 4 of them came up and they hugged the guy and said, "Hi, how you doing?" And you couldn't hear them talking. They just wrap themselves around him, and they're going, "Oh, thank you," and all this stuff. And I'm going, who the hell is this guy? And so he sat down, and these women are doing their thing. They're sitting there huddling with each other. And the one woman with the long two-tone blondish hair went on the other side of the bar and sat with the lawyers. There was the female lawyer dressed in black, and there was this male lawyer dressed in a business suit, had his computer out and everything ready to go. And this other guy that I originally talked to, he's sitting there pacing back and forth. We got into doing a little small talk, and he had explained a few things. And here it is. We're on the 8:30 mark now. The trial should begin. And sure enough, a couple minutes after the jury, or a couple minutes after 8:30, I'd say about 8:33, the bailiff comes on and says, "Everybody rise." Everybody rose up, and here comes 2 women and the judge. The judge takes her seat. The 2 women get up on this podium that's to the left, and everybody sat down. And I began to notice that the woman sitting with the lawyer was very animated. This woman was acting like she was enjoying herself. She was yakking away. She would turn, and the 3 women had a way of communicating. They would sit there and they would kind of speak in quiet, and you'd have to be a lip reader to understand what the hell they were saying. And I couldn't understand, I tried lip reading to this process and, couldn't do it. And audience, please simmer down. I know people don't like each other that are in here, but, I'm trying to report something here and I don't need another battle. So let's just all calm down. Now, so anyway, we get these women, they're all conversing, and every once in a while they turn to the old guy he had this really long white beard. It's kind of like my goatee, but a lot longer. And so everybody sits down, and all of a sudden the judge says to the guy in the green suit, okay, you can approach. And what it turned out, the guy wasn't there for the Cynthia hearing at all. He had a totally different case. And what apparently they do in some of these cases here is they get other business out of the way quickly. And so what it was is he was representing another woman who is currently in prison, and they got talking about transporting the witness or transporting the prisoner to the courtroom and so on. So we spent the better part of 15 minutes sitting there getting other matters besides Cynthia Abcug out of the way. There was a brief WebEx conference that she did. And then after that is when the shit started. Now, before court had started, the two women that were now up next to the judge had brought a bunch of chairs in and sat them down in front of the jury panel. This is where the prospective jurors would come in, sit down, be asked the questions, and put back up on, the ones that were approved would go sit behind this little barrier. Like if you've seen court, you see the jurors sitting in the chairs in a long row, and there's this wooden barrier. And so they had all these chairs lined up. And I said, oh, here we go. Now we're going to start questioning the jury. I had my page all outlined as to, I was going to say what the gender was of each juror that was chosen or questioned. I was going to say what their occupation was, if that came out in court. And I was going to say their race. So I was all prepared for the questioning of the jury. The defense gets up and files a motion. And this started a long battle between the defense and the prosecution over expert testimony. This is something that was brought up in the last hearing, where the defense kept complaining that the prosecution was not cooperating with them when it came to providing information about these expert witnesses, what they were talking about, hello Tennessee Lights, and what was going to be allowed in, what was not going to be allowed in. And the defense was complaining that there's a hell of a lot of information out there by all these experts that they hadn't been access to. So they went back and forth on this, and the word continuance came up, which perked me up. I said, oh shit. So anyway, they talked a little bit, and the judge said, I'd really want to get this case going. Is there any way you guys can resolve this? And they hemmed and hawed a little bit, and they said, we could go out in the corridor, the prosecution and I, and we could discuss this situation and see if there is a way to get the information that the defense wants without throwing the case out the window. And so everybody left. I mean, the prosecution got up, he took his computer, walked out. The defense, the male and all the women got up and left. And so everybody's sitting there saying, well, I guess this is a break. And I took advantage of it, went to the men's room, came back, sat down. And for a good 20 to 25 minutes, everybody was gone. The prosecution came back and sat down, and none of the defense had shown up. Defense was, I don't know what they were out in the middle of the hallway. They were discussing something, and the women and the lawyer. Then they all came back in, and they sat down. The three women went in front of me or two of the three women actually went up in the front and sat in the pew that was closest to the defendant's table. The other woman went in and sat down at the defendant's table, and the male lawyer and the other female lawyer from the Martha, we're off topic on that right now, if you wouldn't mind. Everybody sat down, and this argument started up between the defense and the prosecution. The defense was saying, there is no way that they can get all the information to us. This is, there's like, he said something like 2,000 pages of discovery that we haven't got. No, I don't mind your statement. It's just that I want to stay on topic tonight. So the lawyers are all arguing back and forth over this issue of expert testimony, and a lot of legal terms came out. And we had something called an ROA that came out. We had a Rule 15 that came out, and all this technical stuff on what was going on with these experts, because the defense was saying the expert witnesses, and some of these expert witnesses were doctors from this hospital that started this whole mess in the first place. And the defense is saying that what did they provide, and so on and so forth. And the prosecution kept saying, well, they can't speculate on anything medically. They can just state, a few things on the one charge that they were going to try her for, which was medical child abuse. That was their primary. That was one of two charges. We all know that she was going to be charged with conspiracy to commit kidnapping, but she was also going to be charged with medical child abuse. And they were going to go down the road of medical child abuse more than anything else. So about an hour into the hearing, it became clear the one thing I didn't want to have happen happened. The case is continued. There is not going to be a trial today, tomorrow, this week. Yes, kind of, sort of on your question, Kathy, they did get into records coming out of Broward County. Because this is, there are records out of Broward County, there's records out of Colorado. So there's all these records between the two. They came up with, they had something called the STARTS program that they were discussing that has to do with how they would get some of this evidence. And so what basically happened here is the trial is continued. And the earliest we're going to hear anything out of this case is going to be the 10th of January. And even then, I don't know if that's going to be the actual trial or if they're going to set the trial for after the first of the year. So this whole thing ended today. It ended at 11 o'clock in the morning, Colorado time. 2 hours and it's over. Martha, that's part of the problem. That's what caused all this back and forth between the lawyers to begin with, and this is why the press was restricted on what we could do, is because the children are involved and all this medical information is involved. We were told by the court that you cannot talk about the specifics of the medical information outside the court. And so that was going to limit me when I was going forward to cover this case for the rest of the week. Unfortunately, I'm not doing that. Tomorrow evening, I will be on a plane flying back to Orlando because this is a 1 day event, and it ended with a continuance. But this isn't the end of the story. Now, during all this process, I kept looking at this woman. She had really long blonde hair. It was a little bit on the curly side, wavy. I'm going to answer your question in just a minute, Kathy, so hold on. She had wavy hair. She wore these plastic, cheapish glasses when she's reading stuff. She was very animated. She's sitting there playing around with her cell phone, which I found surprising because cell phones are not supposed to be in court, and everybody's on their cell phones. I mean, everybody. Couldn't understand that. So anyway, we're sitting here, and I looked at her. I said, "That's Cindy Abcug." And, because she would look directly at me because I was behind these women. When she's talking to the woman, she would come over to the bar sometimes when everybody's on break and look at the women and everything. And it was Cynthia Abcug, the woman who loaned me the pen. And I was like, holy shit. And she does not look anything like any pictures there are of her. Not her mugshots, not her picture on her Twitter account, none of it. This woman has had a complete makeover. She could have been one of the lawyers in court. She was dressed in kind of casual business outfit. She had this blouse on that was it was a pattern blouse, and with a dark black skirt. Very conservative looking woman, and she had the glasses. And I said, "Holy crap!" I didn't recognize her because in the pictures that you see of Cynthia, she looks kind of chubby, but in real life, she's attractive woman. She's reasonably thin, and so on and so forth. And it took a while for it to register to me that this was Cynthia Abcug. And so the case was dismissed. They argued back and forth for a while, trying to figure out where they were going to go as the next court date. October 10th was mentioned, which I thought was kind of funny because that's my birthday. And it wandered off. They were going to go into sometime in September. And no, we're not going to do it in September. And it hemmed and hawed, and everybody's looking at their calendars. The prosecution seeing where he can do it, and the defense is seeing where he can do it. And they came up with, from what I understand, for January 10th. And yeah, Al Kennedy, somebody gave her a very professional makeover. She was probably did it for the jury. She's very, very good looking woman. You got to give her credit for that. And so we're looking now at least January. They had talked about February at one point. They even talked about March at one point. I'm sitting there and I heard March. Oh my God. At least they didn't allow me to save up money if I decide to come up here again. I don't relish coming up to Colorado in the middle of January. It's freaking cold up here. It's as cold as it was today when I was walking to court and I almost froze to death. I said, God, why didn't I bring a jacket? Because it is cold up here. It's in the 50s, 60s. And, Martha, it was for the jury. But anyway, so this all ends. And all the women, while the one male defense lawyer went up and he was having a chat with the judge, obviously they knew each other quite well, apparently. And they were doing this off the record conversation about, I'm doing this, doing that, and everything. And the three women, Cynthia Abcug, the two women that are with her, and the defense female, were all over in a group huddling around this guy. And so who the hell is this guy? Everybody's paying attention to this old man. The only other person that was there was a young guy way over on the other side of the courtroom sitting, and he was probably a reporter for local media or something. And the minute everybody said the case is going to be continued, he got up and left. And everybody else was all sitting around doing their thing. And this guy was, some big shot. I thought, he must be like a local lawyer or somebody that's important in the court, and everybody knew him. He was another one of these people that is using the cell phone in the courtroom, and he was tweeting, he was clicking away on his cell phone, sending messages or posts to who knows where. So they all walk out. And I said, well, this is done with. So I pack my stuff up and I get up and I leave. And I'm walking down the hall, and the three women, Cynthia and the two women that were with her, went into the girls' room. I don't know what it is about women. They all have to collectively go to the restroom at the same time. So they all went into the restroom, and this guy's standing there against the wall waiting for him. They got, Jan, let's, I don't mind you asking the question, but let's not get into a big argument here. I'm trying to keep this thing kind of clean tonight. He's standing there, they're in the restroom, and I decided I'm going to try and figure out who the hell this guy is. And I walk up and I start talking to him. And we had a friendly conversation. And I asked him, I said, who are those women that are with Cynthia? And he says, that's their lawyers. And he said, it came out in my questioning that he is involved in this. I don't know exactly how, but he has something to do with, I would guess, helping Cynthia. Now, this is the guy in question, and he gave me his business card. And the guy's name is Ken Dengerick. Dengerick or Dengerick. It's Dengerink. Dengerick. And I got, I didn't pay much attention to the business card until I got back here. So, and he's dressed nothing like the way he was in court. He had the big goatee at the bottom of his chin, and he's kind of baldish on top, but he didn't have this shirt on. And so, this thing blocked my comments. I got to bring the comments back up. So this guy gives me his business card and says he's a liaison. He asked me, I told him, I said, well, Cynthia had sent me a tweet once, and he said, well, her Twitter account's closed. And I said, I gathered that because she hadn't posted on it. And he reminded me, he says, well, people are not allowed to talk to Cynthia. She's basically being cordoned off. And I figured, well, that's logical considering, for her protection and everything. And I said, okay, well, if you speak to her, tell her that I had sent her a tweet about a year ago in response to her questions. And he asked, does she know you? And I said, not really. She knows of me is the best I can figure because she sent me this tweet, private message. And, the private message is anybody investigating Field McConnell and Children's Crusade and so on and so forth. And we, that's a tweet that I put up in my prior live stream. So this guy said, here's my business card. And if you, any questions, you can contact me, and I'm going to act as a go-between with her. I said, okay. And so as I was getting ready to leave, the two, everybody comes walking out of the girls' room, and the guy goes, Okay, I'm going to treat you ladies to brunch. We're going to go to brunch. I'm going to treat you ladies to brunch. And they all say, oh my God, thank you so much. The women love this guy. And I said, this guy must be like a local something or other, some big shot who, has money. Maybe he's financing this. I don't know what the hell is going on. And so I go outside and I tell everybody that I'm going to be on the air telling how this trial went off the rails, which it did, because never got around to jury selection, never saw one juror. Everybody got into this big argument with the judge, and the judge says, well, it looks like we're going to have to continue again. And so we continued the case. And so I get back here to the hotel and I look at the business card. And the business card says in big headline, and what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to take a picture of this. You guys got to see this. So bear with me while I put this online. I got to get my camera. But the business card is nothing like I expected. And I said, what in the hell? Well, again, the delay is all this expert testimony that they're going to give in court on the prosecution side. And the defense is in a big snit because they're claiming that the prosecution is withholding all this evidence and not giving them who it is that's giving all this information. Are they qualified to be given this information, so on and so forth. And so what they did is they basically argued back and forth. And eventually, after all the dust settled, everybody said, well, we got to continue the case well into 2022. And there's going to be something in January. I just don't know what until we get close to that time. Once this stuff hits the docket, I suppose we're going to find out what's going to happen in January. Is the jury trial going to start in January, or are we going to hear another one of these things? So what happened here is that everything is on hold once again. Okay, I'm trying to figure. I'm not getting the right. Here we go. Okay, I'm trying to get this business card in the room, and this is the way I have to do it. Okay. All right, that stuff's done. So anyway, we get this delay in the hearing, and I do my thing on the show, and I say, okay, it's going to be delayed until January, and this guy is like the most important thing in this trial. I mean, they surround this guy like bees on honey. And I'm going, huh? So I think, this guy's got to be somebody important. And so I get the guy's business card because apparently he's some important mucky muck that's going to either finance this situation or is to somehow important to everybody because he gets to interact with all the defense attorneys and with Cynthia herself. So this guy's got to be a primary in the defense of this woman. So I gotta edit this a little bit then because I don't want to be putting the business card up sideways. So I just got to rotate the business card. So we'll get the business card up because you guys are gonna love this. So let's see. All right. Okay. And I'll crop it just a little bit. Because this, I just took this on the hotel desk. And so I just kind of bring it a little bit. But Ken seems to be somebody with a great deal of influence in this case to have all this access. I mean, nobody can talk to Cynthia. I can't come up and talk to Cynthia except to ask her to borrow a pen. And, you know, nobody can talk to this and talk to her except this guy. And I said, geez, this guy's really important. Maybe he's one of these old country lawyers or something, and he's just helping her out because he's retired. But then I look at the business card, and I go, what the fuck? Man, excuse the coarse language, but yeah, I think you hit on it. But he lives in Englewood, Colorado. And, you know, I'm going, what? Why is this man so damn important to this case? And let's see if this came out. All right, now my computer just did something. Okay, here we go. And so, here we go. And what it is, this guy's a handyman. All right, I gotta do something here. Wow. He does plumbing repair. He does bath and kitchens remodel. He works for an outfit called Hollanders Plumbing and Heating. And he's got a LinkedIn account where he says that he's a man that wears a lot of hats. And he does wear a lot of hats. I mean, there's quite a few things this guy does. But he's just an all-around do-it-all guys. Kind of reminds me of Monograph to an extent. But he basically is king of the roost here with all these women. They basically follow him all over the place. But that, when I saw this business card, I go, holy shit. Yeah, we got a handyman that has all this influence over these women, has access to Cynthia, unlimited, has access to the court-appointed lawyers, and he's just having a gay old time with these women. And now they're all going off to have lunch together. And I go, holy cow. And so that is it in a nutshell. I mean, I'm doing my stand-up outside the courthouse, and the floor, I'm just walking off with this guy to the car. So we're getting a little off the rails here on the Bill McConnell stuff. He's next. It's either going to be him next, or it's going to be Neely Blanchard next, because we're having now I'm going to have to redirect my efforts towards Bill McConnell's trial and towards Neely Blanchard's trial. She has a team of attorneys, Lori. There's this guy. He's kind of a millennial, yuppie looking guy. I'd say he's in his late 40s, dark skin, like he's Indian or something like that. He's got a name I can't even begin to pronounce. And he's like the lead attorney. He argued the motion and all this wrangling stuff. There's a woman that was dressed in all black. She is the primary attorney for the public defender's office. And then there are these other two women that I guess they're associated with the public defenders. I don't know who the hell they are. The one looks like a grandmother and the other one looks like a housewife. And, you know, it was just like, I thought maybe they were a couple friends of Cynthia that were there to give her moral support, but they actually are working on the case. At one point, the one woman passed a Post-it note to Cynthia. And then right after she passed the Post-it note, it was given to the male attorney, and it had to do with the motion. And so they were talking about that. And so that's, well, Shane, I don't know who Ken is. Now, if you want to enlighten us as to who Ken is, I would appreciate it. Now, I'm not a professional webcaster by any stretch of the imagination. I hadn't been following the case that close. So if you can enlighten us on who this guy is, Shane, I would very much appreciate it. You know, this is a team effort here. If there's things we're not missing in Cynthia's case, or not getting in Cynthia's case, then by all means, you know, you can write me, you can private message me on Twitter, and hell, I'll even let you come in on the live streams, and you can talk about who Ken is, because I certainly would like to know who he is. And so all we know right now is that he is a former neighbor of Cynthia. And so I guess, Alex, if you know a lot about Ken, maybe you can give me the information. Shane is more than welcome to give me information. So apparently they got along well as neighbors, because he's right in the middle of all this. He's buying them brunch. He's huddling with the lawyers from the public defender's office and all this. It's like, Jesus, you know, this guy's a big wig in this process. And so I guess we're going to be hearing a lot more from Ken. So basically what you're saying, Alex, is he's just a very, very close friend to Cynthia. And she apparently has given this guy permission to be very close to them during this trial. I can understand a neighbor coming up and saying, hey, can I help out a little bit and stuff like this. But this guy has got complete access to Cynthia and the lawyers. All right, let's settle down, guys. Let's not get into any pissing matches in the chat, please. So we got this plumber, handyman, that is king of the hill, so to speak. He's in like Flynn with all these people. And, this is a learning curve for me, because I'm not a full-time investigative reporter. I'm a guy with a YouTube chat room, and I was lucky enough to be able to get the resources together to come up here for this thing, because I figured people would want to know what's going on. People that support Phil, people that don't support Phil, people that support Cynthia, people that don't support Cynthia, so forth. I would be able to give as best an account as I was able to give people information on what's going on here. And in the course of my research, I missed this guy. And I didn't expect this guy to show up in court. And this old guy, me, and this young guy, way over in the corner on the other side of the courtroom, were the only people in the visitors gallery. Nobody showed up to watch this trial. It's just me, the old guy, and what probably was a local reporter. That's it. Media didn't show up to cover the case at all. And as important as this case is, because it has to do with CPS and QAnon and all this other stuff, nobody showed up. And there's a lot of trials like this. This is one of the reasons I started this, is I wanted to be able to go to these trials that nobody covers. And try to give those people that are interested in a trial like this, and the people in the trial, some idea what the hell's going on. So I'm trying my best, guys. I hope that I'm offering something worthwhile here. Somebody keeps giving me thumbs down, so I'm not doing a completely good job, but I try. But so what apparently is happening now is that we are on this long road where we are going to have to wait to see what happens to Cynthia Abcug. And I probably should have asked Ken, I wish somebody would get a current picture of her, the way she appears in court, because she looks nothing like this picture. It took me a little bit of time to finally see the face that's in this picture. And when I saw that face and the way she was looking at me, the light went on and I said, oh, it's Cynthia. Because unless somebody really knows her well, is that this is a woman at the defendant's table, because I kept waiting for Cynthia to show up. I said, where's Cynthia? I figured she was going to walk in with this braided ponytail that she's wearing. And, well, apparently you're right, Glow. She's lost a considerable amount of weight. I would say she's not even a full-figured woman. She is a fairly attractive woman. Thank you, Rebecca. She's a fairly attractive woman, and she looked professional. This woman looked like she could be an administrative head of a PR department, even a female lawyer like Kim. I mean, this woman was very professional looking. And again, this is probably for the court. So, and this is nothing unusual. They do this all the time. They will take a defendant and they will dress the defendant up so that when the jury sees Cynthia, they're going to have sympathy towards her. Because here's this bright, professional, good-looking woman, smartly dressed, and it's gonna sick in their mind. They say, why would they think that this woman would do something that the state has charged her with? And with all of this stuff going around about CPS taking children that they're not supposed to and everything, then this is where this comes in. That possibly the state got it wrong. And of course, Cynthia is presumed innocent until and unless the prosecution can prove their case. So right now, Cynthia Abcug. Oh, thank you, Kathy. That's a surprise. Cynthia is innocent until the day that the jury declares her guilty. If the jury declares her not guilty, then she's not guilty. She's not innocent, but she's not guilty either. So, this is the process we go through in our court system. The woman has, as a defendant, a lot of rights. And this is what came out today. The defense attorney is allowed all this discovery. The state has to tell the defense everything they have. Every single solitary thing. The names of witnesses, how they figure into the case. Are they experts? Are they not experts? All this is what happened here in court. The defense attorney said that the state is not doing its job. The defense actually said that this has been a pattern with the prosecution, that they are setting up roadblocks and making it difficult for them to get their information. This is an argument that the defense made back in the WebEx hearing that we had last month. And trying to see, let's throttle back a little bit, please. But this is, the problem has always been this issue with the expert testimony, what they're going to give as expert testimony, and their qualifications for doing this, and what they can and cannot talk about. As they've already came out and said they cannot mention Munchausen's by proxy. They cannot speculate that she had Munchausen's by proxy. What they can argue is that she committed the crime of medical child abuse by A, B, and C, but they cannot mention specifically medical child or Munchausen by proxy. That has been ruled upon. So what happened today is, again, we're getting into the situation where the defense and prosecution are having a battle over these expert witnesses. Who is an expert witness? Or is the expert witnesses that the prosecution talking about the doctors that started this whole thing? The doctors that said, hey, hi, Kim, welcome to the show. The doctor's saying that the woman has a problem. She's got something like Munchausen. She's abusing this child. She's trying to get him unnecessary medical treatment. He's suffering as a result. And this is what this whole trial is about. Is she or is she not guilty of medical child abuse? The charge of conspiracy to commit armed kidnapping is a secondary charge. It would appear to me that the prosecution is putting all their eggs in this medical child abuse basket. That appears to be the one area where they think they can get her. And I think this is why the defense is bearing down and saying, okay, this is where the state's going. We got to fight this as hard as we can. And so what they're doing is they're arguing over these experts, saying, you got all these experts out there. We're not getting all the information. We're not getting who is saying what, and we are not getting how they fit into all this. Why are they testifying? And it came down to the cause of the continuance came down to this contention by the defense that the prosecution has a huge amount of information that they have not provided to the defense. And after this conference where the defense and the prosecution and all the women went out with their computers and smartphones in the hallway and they're having this long conversation, they came back in and said, yeah, I'm seeing them, Lori, thank you. I appreciate everybody. Every little bit helps. You would not believe how much this thing has cost me. But anyway, so everybody is arguing over these experts, and now she why am I not getting that? Let me take Cynthia off of here. It's not displaying the banners or the comments, and I don't know why. I'm going to take Cynthia off and see if the software is not acting right. So, all right, let me go back up to comments. Okay, there's a question. Is Cynthia out on bail? Yes. I don't know if she's out on her own recognizances or somebody provided bail. She is supposed to be wearing an ankle bracelet. If she is, I didn't see it, which is one of the reasons it threw me off, is because I did not see a GPS monitor anywhere on her person. I wasn't going to sit there and Google her, Google her and all this stuff. She's pleasing to the eyes. There's at least that, but I did not see an ankle bracelet. So, but she is out. She does have restrictions set up by the court. She can't, she's restricted in travel. I think at one time she asked court permission to make a trip, and I believe they gave her permission, but she had to follow a whole bunch of rules why she made this trip. Okay, folks, let's throttle it back in here, if you can, please. Let's try to be polite, even though there are some people that don't like each other in here. Because this is affecting YouTube monitors, and they score my channel based on how things go. So I want to try and keep it to where I stay in the good graces of YouTube. And we're going to have my other room is where we can sit there and have a brawl if that's all you people want to do. But so anyway, that's about it. We're looking at a continuance now to at least the 10th of January. All these experts, they're going to have to get all this information from these people, and then they're going to come back into court, and we're going to find out if there's going to be a trial or if we're going to have another delay. Because I've got to wait and see what comes out of the court to see if this is a trial or if this is another status hearing. Because if this is just another trial, then we're not going to have the trial until well into January, possibly February, possibly March. Because the one thing that came out is because of COVID, everything's been backed up. And the judge said that, now that COVID's over, I'm getting all these new cases coming in. She's not doing WebEx calls as often anymore. So people are going to have to start showing up in court. And this is going to start filling up the courtroom. Excuse me. So that means that we're going to have to monitor the clerk of the court, and we're going to have to see what the clerk of the court puts up as far as what the next step is in this process. I did talk to the district attorney. This is the prosecution. He told me that because of the nature of the case, they are holding up all discovery and facts of the case from the public. So we will not, like in Casey Anthony, I got banker's boxes full of stuff from the Casey Anthony case. There, one time I went down to the printing company who was handling the distribution, and I got a whole box full of discovery. That's not happening here. And so what's going to have to happen is we are going to have to go through this process of, speculating and guessing and just trying to find some information out about this case. Shane, I'm going to start looking into this dispute between the CPS and the public, because there's a lot of people, huge number of people that have issues with CPS. Now, I'm not taking a side here, whether I'm for CPS or I'm against CPS. I am just trying to get out to the public what everybody is saying in a responsible manner. So I'm probably going to start doing more of this stuff with CPS. Now, another case is coming up is one I discussed earlier, and that's this woman. Now, this woman is another Munchausen's. She spent years saying that her child was a victim of cancer. She had all these illnesses and everything. And the girl became something of a hero to Douglas County, right here where I'm at. And she was called the Batgirl because she said she was going to fight criminals like Batman. They made her an honorary cop. She went riding all over the county with the cops. Got a lot of publicity. She was hosted through the Make-A-Wish Foundation. The girl became something of a celebrity. And then she died. And the mother is accused of killing her. And as it happens, they are going through the preliminary stuff just like they're going with Cynthia Abcug. So this trial of this particular woman is coming up soon, and I'm going to be following this case. I won't be able to come up here and do it because this is a very expensive process to come up here and take a commercial flight up here and getting to this courthouse. Castle Rock has what has to be the absolute poorest way of getting around in this town. They have no taxis, no city buses, nothing. I had to spend $150 on an Uber just to get down here. Now, fortunately, when I go back, I'm going to be taking a shuttle for $30. They're going to stuff us all in this little van like a bunch of sardines, and we're going to go back to the airport tomorrow. So, but this woman is accused of killing her daughter, and she had another daughter that she was starting to do the same thing. And she's charged, she's got she's got a bunch of charges. She's got wire fraud because she collected all this money. She collected thousands of dollars on a GoFundMe account under basis of fraud. And I've talked about this before, how if you're collecting money on over the internet by fraudulent means, that is wire fraud. And this is what this woman's accused of doing, along with murdering her child. And there's another woman, I don't know if I have her picture on here. Yeah, here we go. This girl her name is Gypsy Blanchard. And that shocked me. Here we have Neely Blanchard going on trial because she got pissed off at Chris Hallett. And there's this little girl on the left that was the victim of her mother in this Munchausen by proxy case. And this story is a little bit, and what's amazing about it, this is her as a little princess. She was a big Disney fan, apparently. And there's even a movie that was made called The Act. I believe it's right now. I believe it's on Hulu or HBO. But they did a miniseries about this girl. She murdered her mother because of the way she was treated. Because of all the years that she couldn't live her life in freedom because her mother kept her restricted. Kept telling her about all the, convinced her she was sick and all this, and took complete control of her. And so what finally happened was that her and her boyfriend apparently killed her. And the parallel with Neely Blanchard is she's now being ready to be put on trial for killing Chris Hallett. So we got two Blanchards accused of killing people that ruined their lives. This is something I said when I did that video with the gun, with the bullet flying out of it, with Tim Holset. I said, this is going to happen eventually. And I said this before Chris Hallett was shot. That somebody was going to get so angry and being betrayed by people that don't know what the hell they're doing, that they're going to take a gun and they're going to shoot them. Now, is it justified? No. But when people get that mad, all common sense goes out the window. And here we have a daughter that killed her own mother because her mother mistreated her to the extent where she put her life in danger, and she lived her whole life sick, restricted, couldn't go anywhere, was coached in interviews with professionals, all that stuff. Exact same thing that happened with the Batgirl. Get back up there. Same thing that happened to this girl. These two cases where mothers allegedly abuse their children. One child gets murdered, the other child murders the abuser. And then we get a woman down in Florida that finds out that the man who claims he has all these connections and cannot come through, she gets angry, comes all the way from Kentucky down to Florida and shot her. And the answer to that question, Political Kitty, is no. I cannot live stream from the court in this case. And again, this is because of the orders that were given by the judge. And one of the things I did to the clerk of the court is I went and got a written copy of the order, and it was virtually the same phraseology the judge used in the WebEx hearing, that the press is more than welcome to come, but you cannot take pictures in court, you cannot live stream in court, and you cannot text. Yeah, this little girl on the right, she died. The other girl is serving 10 years in prison for manslaughter. So I would have to go back and find out the original sentencing. So if she serves her sentence to term, that's 10 years. She might get out on game time for, the criteria they set up. So she should be getting out of jail fairly quick. Oh, you're welcome, Kitty. Well, Tennessee, that may or may not be true. I mean, Kathy Miracle, or Michelle, sorry, Kathy, I mispronounced your name. She is a big supporter of Phil McConnell. And, so she's going to be interested to know if anything about Phil McConnell is going to come out for the case. And what came out last week is that QAnon is not going to be mentioned. So Phil McConnell and the rest of everybody will not come up in court. And to answer your question about the court date, as far as I know, we're looking at January 10th. And whether this is going to be another status hearing or whether this is going to be the actual trial, I don't know that right now. This whole thing that went on in court was confusing. They were throwing dates all over the place as everybody was looking at their prospective appointment books to see when everybody would be able to get together and hash this one issue that screwed this whole thing out and get a resolution. And from what I can understand from all these hallway conferences that happened, is they have come up with that they can get this thing cleared up in January at the earliest. And if this is a status hearing, then we're going to be looking at a court date down the road, and we're going to start this whole process all over again. So we will not be doing anything in Castle Rock, Colorado until next year. And so our best prospects for monitoring this trifecta, as it is coming to be known, the Abcug case, the Blanchard case, and the McConnell case, is that they are going to be the ones coming up next. It's looking like it's kind of a tie right now as to what's going to be next on the docket. Are we going to get into Phil McConnell? Are we going to get into you're going to get into a situation where, all right, sorry about that, guys. I just completely lost my train of thought. This is why I don't usually read the chats. But, we're having a horse race here. It's neck and neck as to whether or not it's going to be Phil McConnell or Cynthia or Nellie Blanchard that comes up again on the dockets. Now, next week on the 8th, there's going to be another status hearing. Phil McConnell's not going to be present for that. They cleared that out. He's going to stay up in Wisconsin. The lawyer's going to handle the legal stuff that has to do with this particular case. I'm not quite clear on what they're discussing, but it may have to do with logistics of getting him down here and some other stuff. So the status hearing is next week. Cynthia Abcug, the last time I looked at her, they were talking about having jury selection with her sometime in November. And if the cases move forward in field, he would be looking at jury selection around the same time. So we're going to have these two cases almost right on top of each other. And depending on what goes on in court, it's either going to be Field or Neely Blanchard that's next in line for trial, and my covering both of these cases. And fortunately for me, both of these cases are in the state of Florida, so I won't have to come up here in the dead of winter to cover their cases, because it's going to be in nice, sunny Florida. Thank God for that. Well, Kathy, I do thank you for coming in, and again, I thank you for your contribution. I try to be fair here. I have my personal issues with Tim and Randy, as you know. I really don't have a beef with Field. I have opinions, yes, but in the end, everybody is going to support who they support. But, you know, all I ever wanted out of Tim Holmseth is to leave me out of his little games, and he refuses to do it. And so now I'm in covering all these trials, which is what I was wanting to do in the first place. And in the future, when I start doing stuff, I really wish that, which one's a closed case? But they're, I've always wanted to cover these trials. There's, just like I did with the Casey Anthony trial. I didn't take sides in it. There were people in my room that happened to have their very sharp opinion. And it caused a few problems because the Anthonys thought I was the leader of this hate group when I wasn't. I just provided a platform for them. And so all this back and forth happened. Now, so what I'm asking everybody that's on all different sides, there's people in here that are enemies with each other, and all I ask is you guys respect each other. You can make comments, but I don't want to have the show go off the rails because there are some very strong emotions being projected by a lot of different people out there. It's gone pretty good tonight, thank God. So I thank everybody for being reasonably calm and all this. And Kim, I do appreciate you coming in. I always appreciate it when you come in because you're an expert in these matters and your opinion counts. Now, as far as what's going to happen, I will be leaving Castle Rock tomorrow. Going to take the shuttle back out to the airport. Going to fly back to Orlando. I had to modify my flight. I had to pay another $258 for an airfare in order to get a flight back and within 24 hours. That was a miracle I was able to get that. And it's going to balance out because instead of paying full fare for the hotel, that money is now going towards this extra cost of the flight. So it's, it's worked out pretty good. I was expecting to be here all week, but, that didn't happen. But the interesting side story came out. I mean, this Ken guy was a complete surprise to me. And there are people, oh, thank you, Rebecca. There are people on here that know who this Ken guy is. So if you would please drop me a line, I would very much like to have this information because I'd like to be thorough and accurate when I do these things. And, I am going to make mistakes. Well, I'm glad you're here too, Kim Harp. Yeah, the only reason I said Kim Picasio is that, she is an officer of the court and she has insight as to what is going on here. And, Kathy, I do have opinions. I try to make it known when I am making an opinion and when things are facts are perceived as facts. Uh, and it is an open chat. I just want everybody to be as polite as possible, in spite of the fact that you may have issues with individuals on the chat. Because outsiders are watching this chat. YouTube is watching the chat. It affects my status with YouTube if the show goes off the rails. So I'm trying to keep things balanced as best I can. I've had complaints by people that are in here about the way I've been running the show lately, which is one of the reasons I created the second channel, so that that can be like an open line thing where everybody can just go to town, and as long as they follow the community standards of YouTube, all bets are off. But here, we've got to have a modicum of control so that outsiders can come in here and not see a shit show. They see people having a heated debate about a particular subject, and that's just the way I'd like it to be. It's difficult, I understand. People have strong emotions, they have strong beliefs. There's been a past with a number of individuals in here, and it's kind of hard to bury the hatchet, especially on such a sensitive subject. But I'm going to try my best to provide some kind of a platform so that everybody can get facts about something such as the Abcug case. Media is not covering this case at all. Maybe one kid reporter, and that was it. And I found it weird that the court administration told me that they had media requests, and I think what happened is when the mainstream media found out they weren't able to bring their cameras and reporters into the courtroom, they said, screw this, we're not going to cover it. And they'll probably just, one day they'll go in, they'll get a copy of the decision that's made today, and they'll say, oh, court's continued, maybe get a 2-line mention on the nightly news or something. And that's going to be it. And, it's going to be people like us on social media that follow these cases that are going to get the information out, so that if anybody's interested in the underlying issues here, they can get that input and decide for themselves what's right or what's wrong. Because, please don't pounce. Your teeth are sharp. But this is a very touchy subject here. We have a woman on trial because she tried to get her children back from CPS. CPS declared that she had run child abuse by proxy. There's a lot of people out there in the anti-CPS community that support her, that disagree with that. They say CPS had no business taking that child from Cynthia. She wasn't Munchausen's. She was just trying to do what she could for her son, and they even endorsed to some extent this alleged plan she had to get the children back. Thank you, Kim Picasio, for showing up. I really, really appreciate it. It's an honor to know you and to know that you take the time to come over and visit with everybody. You rock too, Kim. So, and the other Kim rocks. We got 2 Kims in here, so both Kims are nice people. But what is lunging? Oh, okay, Norman. But anyhow, we're going to move forward. And like I said, this particular case that I've got up here, I'm going to check into it. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to stick around and do this in court up here. I have discussed with the court administration this case and how I can get the information I need to where we can start discussing this case, and also with the other case where the daughter killed the mother because of what was alleged to have been done to her. We have 3 cases now. We have the Grant case, we have the other case, we have Neely Blanchard, where emotions got so high and actions got so far off the beam that people died. This child died, the other mother died, and Chris Hallett died because of interactions having to do with child custody and the way people treat children. Now, there's people that want to abolish CPS. I want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Kingfish, I am one of these people that believe if there is a problem with CPS, let's deal with it. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Because I will often wonder what would have happened if CPS had gotten involved with Casey Anthony, if CPS had gotten involved with the Trenton Duckett case, if the CPS had been a little bit stronger in their interaction and results to Haley Cummings. You know, CPS had done their job properly, would all these children be alive today? We will never know. But there's a lot going on in this country and in the countries around the world when it comes to governmental authorities to come in and make a determination that you are not the kind of parent that needs to be you're not the proper parent for these children. You're not the proper guardian for these children. These children need to be taken away from you and put somewhere else. Now, there are people that have had success with CPS, that they dealt with CPS. They were successful with them within the system. They didn't go and steal their children back with phony papers saying that they're from the U.S. Marshals or anything. They worked with CPS and got their children back. So it does happen. How often it happens, I don't know, because I haven't been studying the issue that much. I am going to try and study it more often and see just exactly where the truth lies when it comes to the interactions between CPS and parents that they consider a problem, or guardians for that matter. And hopefully some of you out there that are passionate about this subject will send me material. Some of you are more than welcome to come on the show. If there is somebody out there that has strong feelings, either A or B, with the way CPS is handling things, you're more than welcome to be on here, because I want to provide a forum where everybody can deal with issues that concern them. Not necessarily politics. I want to stay away from politics as much as I can. Although politics to some extent is involved in all of this. Because it's the politicians that make the laws, it's the politicians that can give or take away the powers of the CPS and other government agencies responsible for determining whether or not a parent is fit to have a child in their custody. Now, it's not over for Cynthia Abcug. There's going to be a hearing in September, and that hearing has to directly deal with the custody of her children. And so we are going to find out if and when Cynthia Abcug is ever going to at least visit her son and daughter, or if it's going to be cut off. So we're going to, oh, you got a sick kitty? Oh, sorry to hear that. Kitties are cool. Thanks for stopping in, fireman. But, Lori, it's a status hearing. It's not a trial. Not sure what's going on here in that particular, but it's a different case entirely. It's not this case. And anything is possible in this case. We've gone through all these hearings, delays, motions, and so on and so forth. And I really thought we were going to have a trial. They had 5 days on the docket. They had it all laid out that today was going to be the jury hearing. There was going to be opening and closing arguments, or opening arguments today. One of the experts that they had been talking about was supposed to come in on Thursday. And we thought we had all this solved. And then the defense comes in and throws a monkey wrench in the whole process. Now, the defense is doing the job, you know, and it's valid enough that the judge had no choice but to delay the trial. And so now we have a continuance, looks like in January, and we're going to have to go and see what happens here. So I guess at this point, we're an hour and 30 minutes. I really don't see anything else to cover here. The trial is going to be continued. We're going to have hearings next month on a separate issue with the children. We've got Phil McConnell next week, which is a status hearing. So I'll update when that comes out, but I don't expect a lot there. The next big thing is going to be Neely Blanchard. So I'm going to be concentrating on the Neely Blanchard case, figuring out what's going on in Ocala, so that when that comes up, I can cover it. The Neely Blanchard case is in Ocala, which is 2 hours from my house, so that's going to give me the ability to go up there. And I do not think that's going to be a closed trial. As far as whether or not I'm going to be able to live stream from the court, I have no idea. I'm going to have to talk to the court administration up there at that time and find out what the situation is with them in the media. And if there's any indicator, I'm not sure how much interest the media is going to have in this, the mainstream media, because, as big as issue as this was, with this Munchausen's, with CPS, with QAnon, and all this stuff, nobody showed up. The mainstream press did not show up. I don't know who the young cub reporter was that was in there. It was just some young dude, well-dressed, came in, plugged his cell phone into the charging bay over in the right-hand corner, and when everything was done, he just bugged out. So that's where we're at. Thank you once again, Lori. I basically am, like all of you, interested in these cases. They are all intermingled together. We have a trifecta of cases here between these. They have a common connection. And that's one of the reasons these specific cases that I'm covering. There are other cases that I could cover where I don't have to travel 1,000 miles and sit on an airplane for 4 hours to cover it. But once again, I'm not getting the banner shown. Here we go. But what is going on here is that it's up to us in the social media community to do what the mainstream press either cannot or will not do. The mainstream press is in the news business to make money. So they're going to choose their story. They're going to say, we'll cover this, we'll cover this. And if it's not getting thousands upon thousands or millions of people tuning in, they're not going to cover it. They are not going to cover a trial where 23 people show up in chat to discuss the case and only get a few followers on their various social media sites. They want exposure so that they can sell ad time to their sponsors, because ads is how they make money. And so what they do is they choose the most important cases. Like, because of its unusual circumstances, we had Casey Anthony. Same thing happened with Haley Cummings and with Trenton Duckett. These were 3 cases where the children are either murdered or missing, and their caregivers are involved. Babysitter of Haley Cummings, that case is unsolved. The mother of Trenton Duckett commits suicide. That case is unsolved. And now, and so, and Casey Anthony was acquitted of the murder of her daughter. In the beginning, Lori, the mainstream media did cover the case. But the case is no longer current. There's nothing going on. These administrative hearings that they're hearing, or that we're having, the mainstream media is not interested in them because there's not a story there. It's not a big thing. They're not going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to send live trucks down here to cover a status hearing, to cover a trial that's over in 2 hours. They're not going to do it. They're going to cover the big story. The big story of the day in Colorado is a mudslide on I-70. Political kitty. The last I heard is that Casey Anthony is trying to become a private investigator. In Florida, that's no easy task. You have to be sponsored by a detective agency. There's a lot of training you have to go through. There's all kinds of stuff that she has to go through in order to be a private investigator. At one time, she thought she was going to be a professional photographer, and that went bust. And so I don't know what her latest plan is now. The latest thing I heard out of Casey Anthony, or out of Casey Anthony, is she got into a bar fight over a former boyfriend with another woman. It's the typical thing where two women like the same dude, and one woman gets mad and cops an attitude. And I guess Casey wound up getting a drink in her face, and we had a barroom brawl of some kind. But, so I don't know what's going on with her. There was talk that she was going to be doing some kind of a documentary. And, of course, the people over on Facebook that want to boycott everything she does raised hell about that. So I don't know where that's going. The Zoom hearings, Martha, has really put the kibosh on media showing up in court. Now, the judge has indicated that these Zoom hearings are done, that people are going to have to start coming into court. While they were in break, they had a number of cases come up where people were calling on WebEx to talk to her, and she says, look, it says, we're starting to get back to normal. We're starting to get COVID under control. The state wants us to go back to in-person hearings. And so I'm not going to be open to Zoom, WebEx hearings. You're going to have to come to court. Because there was one person that wanted to do a remote, and the judge said, no, you're going to have to come to court. So we are seeing a reduction in Zoom hearings. Now, they will probably be, in some cases, like these status hearings, where it's going to be more economically feasible for the court to do that. But for the more important hearings where there's stuff coming out, they will have to come to court. In Tennessee Lights, I'm going to reiterate, QAnon is not going to be mentioned in this case unless the defense brings it out. The court ruled that the alleged participants in the kidnapping are not relevant. They just, for whatever reason, the judge said it's not coming in. And so anyone involved allegedly in the Abcug matter for now is off the hook. Now, I don't know what's going to happen down the road. If other law enforcement agencies get involved, that's their gig. But for right now, the people that were involved in this fiasco can take a sigh of relief. Yeah, you're correct, Tennessee Lights. The wire fraud is entirely different. And if they're going to pursue the wire fraud, they're going to have to do it in a different venue, because it's not going to be coming into this case unless somehow the defense brings it in. But the judge was very specific at saying that no, QAnon and the Children's Crusade, no, this is not going to be brought into court in the Abcug matter. And I think mainly it's because instead of concentrating as hard on the charge of conspiracy to commit kidnapping, the prosecution seems to be going down the road of medical child abuse and trying to get her prosecuted for that. And that's kind of a different situation because it can either be a misdemeanor or a felony, depending on the evidence in the case. And it's going to be hard to read it because anyone that does not attend the trial is not going to understand what level the jury is going to give to the case. Now, this will come out in the Brady instructions as to whether the jury has the power to say she's innocent or she's guilty or not guilty of felony medical child abuse, or if she's guilty or not guilty of misdemeanor child abuse. The felony is pretty serious. The misdemeanor is serious, but not as serious. She would be out in a couple of years. She'd have to pay a big fine. She'd lose custody of her child if she was adjudicated guilty. Now, outside the court, the CPS still has the authority to rule on whether or not she can keep her children. She could be found innocent and still lose her, or not guilty and still lose custody of the child, of both children, because it's a preponderance issue, it's a civil issue, and it's not a criminal issue. And so that is going to be that. I do not see a plea of insanity coming involved in here. I think what the defense is going for is that she is not guilty of Munchausen's by proxy. She's not guilty of medical child abuse. The insanity plea is going to probably come up in the Blanchard case. Okay, I don't know if I'm missing a lot of names. I'm sorry. I don't know who's missing names. If I'm missing them, I'm sorry. I'm kind of limited on what I can do here. If I start reading the chat too much, then I get thrown off. My mind goes off into another planet somewhere. But Blanchard is likely to plead temporary insanity. Right now, in both cases, both in the Blanchard case and in the Abcug case, they're pleading not guilty. Same thing holds true of Phil McConnell. He is pleading not guilty. And so as far as what is going to happen here is anybody's guess. Well, Tennessee Lights. Phil McConnell is accused of doing some very specific things. And it's boiling down to his violation of the court order and of what he said and did on his channel that he would be tried for. As far as the actions of all these other people, it's not relevant to his case either. It's got to do specifically with Phil McConnell's conduct. Now, that's where I'm beginning to learn some things, is we are getting rulings from the court that says a lot of ancillary facts are not relevant in the particular case. This seems to be the direction that we would go with Phil McConnell. And as far as I know, the son is doing okay. There have been reports that since the son is in the care of a foster parent who happens to be a registered nurse, that the child is doing fine. And, it's likely, if the information I'm getting is true, that the foster parents are going to have custody of the child for an indefinite period of time because they're good and responsible people and everybody's getting along with each other. Yeah, Tennessee, you're right. But, what we all feel from the outside and what we consider relevant changes when you walk into a courtroom. And this is what was argued. But they said the judge made the decision that all the involvement of these people in helping Cynthia is not relevant to this case. They are going down the road that was Cynthia that was the primary here. All the evidence is towards Cynthia. The only mention of everybody else that's going to come out is with the testimony of the daughter. The statement she made to the police that caused Cynthia to be arrested in Montana, or Nebraska, Montana, wherever it was, when she was through with Northwest Liberty News, her statement and her statement alone is what's going to come into court. The medical student, his testimony is not going to come into court. The trial is very, very limited in scope. It's down this narrow path of what Cynthia did on her own. She's the one accused. And again, we're looking at the medical child abuse being the strongest case for the prosecution and the direction that the prosecution seems to be taking. They are more concerned about the medical child abuse than they are about this case. Yeah, Montana. Thank you, Laurie. They're more interested in the medical child abuse, which is what started the ball rolling even before Cynthia got involved in QAnon. Before Cynthia got involved in QAnon, her problem was the accusation by the medical professionals and the state of Colorado of medical child abuse. And so they decided to go down that road. And Lori, I'm not too clear on why the judge decided on that. I think, there's some rules of evidence when it comes to hearsay and what is determined to be relevant and material and what's determined to be irrelevant and immaterial. And the judge made the call she made after hearing the arguments between the prosecution and the defense. She stated that this is the way it's going to be. Now, because of that, the fate of the Children's Crusade, the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force, and these other people is completely unknown. Bill McConnell's sitting in his home waiting trial. The other people are out there doing what they do, putting up the theories they put up, and arguing amongst themselves over what's true and what's not true. Everybody on that side of the border wants Trump to be reinstated as president on August 15th. You got a guy running around in a car saying that the former vice president of the United States wanted to kill him, and saying that an officer of the court threatened to kill him. And it's just, so we're going down that path. But none of this is coming in. It's Cynthia Abcug having to answer for her actions and convincing a jury that she's not guilty of the charges against her, either one of them. That's what the trial's all about, if we ever get there, which we will eventually. Eventually, this thing's going to come to a head. We're going to have a trial. We're going to get a verdict, and we're going to go on from there. Now, if she's found guilty, then we're going to come back. There's going to be another hearing. The judge is going to sentence her. Then there's going to be another hearing where, if in 90 days or whatever, she gets the right to appeal. So this thing could go well into 2022 before it's ever resolved, before everything runs out. The only thing is while she's appealing her case, she will be in jail I do not think she will be let out of jail pending appeal. But I could be wrong. We'll only know the answer to that question if it reaches the verdict stage and she is sentenced for what happened. So that's where we're at tonight. We're in a waiting game on 3 trials, possibly 4. Well, I don't know about the side group connections, political. I just think that it boils down to rules of evidence, and the court has decided that the QAnon connection to all this is not important. They want to concentrate solely on Cynthia Abcug's conduct in both charges, both in the medical child abuse, which I think is the key one here, and the secondary charge of the kidnapping. Now, there is always the possibility, and based on information that I had in the past and discussions I've had with federal authorities, that the FBI is still actively investigating things. So the QAnon folks may be off the hook in this particular case, at least for the time being, but they're not off the hook entirely, because these other matters are still being looked into. The wire fraud, impersonation of federal authorities, all this stuff of being done out there, allegedly, various state and federal and military officials are looking at them. Now, it's going to be a question, of what's going to happen now. Are people still going to trust these right-wing QAnon groups, or are people going to wake up and say this stuff is just too out of there? We don't know. People out there, individual people are going to have to decide. Nothing I say or nothing anybody else says is going to change any minds. These people have to make up their own mind based on their own opinions and experiences as to whether or not they're going to trust these people. Are there going to be more Cynthia Abcugs out there? Probably. We hope not. But when you get as desperate as a mother gets, facing the loss of her child or children to a governmental agency because they feel she's an unfit parent, they're going to get desperate, and they may turn to somebody like this and may wind up doing things they shouldn't be doing. They may wind up getting a gun, going out and attempting to kidnap their children, and wind up in the same boat as Cynthia. I mean, look at what's happened here. Had a mother with Munchausen's by proxy get her daughter so angry at her that she killed her. Another mother with Munchausen's by proxy wound up murdering her daughter and almost did the same thing to the other daughter. You have a woman down in Florida who murdered a guy because he made promises he couldn't keep. He said, "Oh, I'm going to help you get your children back. I know the president of the United States. I have connections in the government. I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing." And somehow she was led to believe that not only was he unable to do that stuff, but he was actively saying to people that, "I don't believe she's a fit parent. She shouldn't have custody of her children." In this, I guess it's 1 or 2 children, but she is not deserving. And the mother said, "Screw you," and executed him. It's getting violent out there, everybody, with these cases. People are getting mad at each other. And they're going to the extent where people are getting killed. We have these cases of 2 people getting killed because of Munchausen's by proxy and by unfit parenting. I don't know the specifics of the Blanchard case, so I have to go back and review as to why she lost her children. But it was child abuse of some form, is what's alleged. And she somehow got the idea that the children were being taken away and they were being sold to pedophiles, and some were getting killed for this chemical, and people were drinking their blood and all this stuff. And these people got crazed to say, I do not want my children in these evil groups and in the hands of these evil people. And if I have to kill somebody, I'm going to do it. That may have been the possible result of the Blanchard or of the Abcug situation had she not been stopped. That there is a good possibility that Cynthia Abcug could have gone to the parents and killed them. That's a distinct possibility. And so that makes this a serious matter. So now we got to see where we're going with this. We're going to see if there are going to be more of these cases where people run around and kill each other, or is there going to be a miracle and we going to put a stop to this, or at least cut it down? Don't know. But as long as we have these wild rumors out there, largely false rumors that people are kidnapping babies, selling them, eating them, putting them up for prostitution and all this stuff, this is going to keep happening. There are people that are strongly convinced of what QAnon says, that they will go out and they will kill if necessary. This is where these cases all come together. We have 4 cases, actually, because we have the 3 Munchausen's cases, and we have Phil McConnell, and we have Cynthia Abcug. So that's 5 cases. It just keeps growing. More and more cases. As we talk about this, there's more cases, because we still got this one out in Idaho or wherever it is, Utah or Idaho, where that woman did something, and she's got to face the court for that because of this running off to the West Coast with these kids. So there's a lot of this stuff is out there. Lee, this is the sex slaves on Mars is the funny one. And NASA even had to come out and disavow that story. And common sense would dictate. We got 2 billionaires fighting over who's going to get to Mars first, and some guy gets on a right-wing show and says, "Oh, they've got child slave colonies on Mars." It's weird. Now, what's interesting about all this is one person did flip and give testimony about what happened between Cynthia and the people from QAnon. And apparently she was the money lady in all this. So they discarded all that. That to me, that would have been an important piece of evidence. I mean, this woman had a lot of information, but they said, no, it's not coming in. Nobody from QAnon, nobody from the Children's Estate, and so on and so forth is going to be mentioned in this case unless the defense brings it in. And so we're left with concentrating on Cynthia Abcug, her actions, and what the court and the jury will decide in the months down the road, progress. And with that, I'm going to wrap this up. I pretty well talked myself out. I keep repeating myself. So we are going to be here again, probably next week, discussing Field McConnell's pretrial hearing, discussing what happens with the status hearing with Cynthia Abcug next week. And if there's anything that comes out with Neely Blanchard from the Ocala Court next week. I appreciate everybody tuning in. We had a pretty good chat tonight. I mean, we got heated there for a while, but everybody kind of reeled it in, which I appreciate. I think we're getting on a road where we can have heated debates, respectful disagreements, so on and so forth. The individuals that come in here to start trouble didn't come in, thank God, and didn't need to use the wrenches tonight. So I think we're on a good path, and I hope it continues because, we can always agree to disagree and still have be polite to each other. We may not respect each other. We may not agree with each other, but we can at least get along for a couple hours. So please like, subscribe, hit the notification button. And if you can help, I do have my, PayPal, because this is an expensive process to go up here. This little stunt cost me a fortune. Laurie, Richard, Political Kitty, Lee, and the rest of you guys, thank you for coming in. Enjoy the rest of the week. Stay safe. Don't kill anybody. This is William K. Murtaugh, Mert Witness 1. Till the next time, have a good one.